Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. My name's LT and today we're going to be building a 4-inch downpipe for the turbo on UglyTruck, the 2000 Chevy Silverado. Now if you're just tuning into this channel for the first time, first of all, welcome and please subscribe. Second of all, you might be thinking, oh great, another LS turbo build. Maybe he's gone with a 6.0 instead of a 5.3. Well, luckily that couldn't be further from the truth. Now, I know the LS engines are a great platform. They're affordable, they're plentiful, they're durable, they can hold up to a ton of power and you can build one for next to nothing. But they're overdone and that's my biggest problem with them, and I don't think anybody can argue that. So instead of an LS, I went the complete opposite route. I chose the biggest engine that GM ever put under the hood of any pickup truck, and that's the 8.1 liter 496 cubic inch V8. And off to the side, I stuck a T6 S400 80mm turbo and a 60mm wastegate. Now, I have an ultimate goal to make 1,000 horsepower, but right now this 8.1 is on the stock bottom end. In fact, I haven't even touched the ring gaps. And yeah, the 8.1s kind of do have a reputation for letting go at not a very high power level. So drop your comments down below at where you think this thing will let go. Next year, I do plan on building the motor. I'm going to forge it, put in some stronger pistons and rods, and maybe even stroke it out to a 540 or something like that. But that's a project for another day. Today, we're talking exhaust, so let me show you what I'm starting with. When I first started the UglyTruck project early on in 2020, I wanted to build one custom exhaust that would last the duration of the build, both in terms of how much power it would support and in terms of any future changes I might be making to the chassis. And what I wound up with is a 4-inch stainless catback with a MagnaFlow muffler in the center. And it exits all the way at the rear bumper and everything is tucked up nicely. The whole system is concealed and it sounds really amazing. Now I've got to get it connected up to the turbocharger, and as you saw just a second ago, this is an S400, and on the back is a 5-inch Marmon style flange. It has this kind of little hump right in the middle of it. Now, I don't need to run a 5-inch downpipe, that's just kind of ridiculous. So I grabbed this 4-inch stainless steel transition that goes from the 5-inch Marmon, comes with a V-band, and then it has an outlet at this 4-inch spot right there. So now all I need is some material to connect from that flange to my downpipe. I think I grabbed this one from Amazon. I always put the links down below in the description, but this is a 4-inch Vibrant Performance J-bend, I think they call it. It's got a 180 and a 45, so I should have enough material to build the entire downpipe and connect it up to the exhaust. So let's get to it. Since I started this project, I always knew that the downpipe was going to be the trickiest part because there's just not a lot of space between the frame rail, the up pipe, and the exhaust manifold. Now, I've got the downpipe tacked up and it fits great in terms of, the frame rail and the firewall and the up pipe. It's got plenty of room there, but the tire is where it's going to be a little bit tight. Now, you just saw me put the tire on the front a little bit ago, and I actually just swapped the tire back to the rear. It's this size right here. It's a 255/55/18. And this is just a temporary tire. They're actually the old ones from my wife's X5 because I had a pair on the back that were kind of bald. So this is the tire that I want to run in the long term. It's a 265/65/18, so it is a little bit taller and a little bit wider than the one that you saw me put on. Now, right now the wheel is turned all the way to the right. That's as far as it is ever going to go. And I have the downpipe in, and it's got probably, if I can get the right angle here to show you guys, it's got just a little bit less than an inch of clearance. Now, in all reality, you're never going to have the wheel turned that far to the right and then go over a massive bump to kind of stuff it up in there. I did hop up and down on the front bumper just to see if I could get it to actually hit. And I could, if I jump like as hard as I can just kind of get it to barely rub. But in the real world, in driving conditions, I can't think of any time that I'll ever be able to get that to hit. Now, say if something messes up, maybe we're doing some donuts and we go off the road, I don't know. It's definitely possible, but improbable. So I think we're good to go. I'm happy with how the downpipe looks. So now I've just got to add one more elbow on to the end of it to kind of shoot the exhaust towards the back of the truck, and then I can finish welding. Now, I did want to be able to run full inner fender liners without having to cut them up. Now, I'll be able to run them no problem, but I am going to have to cut a small oval hole kind of somewhere there in the back, and that's just where the downpipe gets really close. There's just no other way to do it. So if all I have to do is cut a small hole in the plastic fender liner, I'm okay with that. So let's continue on. All right, I figured I'd run into this problem at some point or another with a downpipe just because it was getting a little bit longer, and every piece I added, it became a little bit more difficult to get in and out. Now, the very last piece right here, that kind of was the icing on the cake. That sealed the deal, and I was unable to get it in and out comfortably. I mean, I did get it in and I was able to pull it back out, but the flange on the big end, it just kind of scraped against the fender a little bit, and it was just a little bit too tight. So not a big deal. Originally, I was planning on having the V-band flange right down there because it was really, really easy to get to underneath the truck. But instead, now all I'm going to do is just cut these 3 tack welds, remove the last elbow, and put the V-band right on there. I can still get to it pretty easy. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to get the nut on and off, but luckily it is one of these quick release style V-bands, so not a huge deal. While I was underneath the truck, I also made 2 marks for some O2 sensors. I'm going to have the stock narrowband one right there, and that's perfect because it has plenty of cord to plug into the factory location. And then finally, I made a mark for the wideband O2. Now, they say you're supposed to keep it about 24 inches away from the turbo. This one, from this point here to the turbine, which will sit somewhere right in there, it's about 19 inches. So I didn't have quite enough space on the firewall to comfortably put it any lower. So it'll be a little bit close, but I think it'll be just fine. So now all I gotta do, like I said, cut the tack welds, put in a couple holes for some O2 sensors, and finish weld it. And this downpipe, for the most part, is done. So there's one more thing I wanted to show you guys, which I thought was pretty cool. These 5 pipes right here, these scraps, that is all that's left over from the entire J-bend that I picked up to build this downpipe. I use literally every last inch of bends that I bought, which is really, really lucky on my part. But the downpipe is done for the most part, and it's in the truck, and it looks great. There's plenty of clearance other than that little spot on the tire where I showed you. The wide band's going to go right there. The narrow band's going to go right there, and you kind of barely see the V-band clamp way back there. Now, I'm unable to connect it to my exhaust system at this time because I'm a little bit short on just straight pipe. All I need is about a 4-foot section of straight 4-inch, and it'll go between the downpipe and the rest of my exhaust. Now, I had a 3-foot scrap, and I thought it would be enough, but it's not. So I had to place another order, thank goodness for Amazon, and that'll be here probably later this week, early next week. One more thing I'm also waiting on is a 2 1/4-inch flex bellow that I'm going to use to go in between the outlet of the wastegate and the downpipe. I'm going to recirculate it somewhere right through there. And the little flex bellows, those are just because of, thermal expansion. As the heat cycles go over and over on this truck, things are going to be moving around, and that just kind of prevents cracking. And I also actually might order one for the crossover pipe as well. I made that solid, and I kind of thought about it later. And I'll probably do what it is. It's on my think about list. It's not quite on the to-do list yet, but it's in the back of my mind. Now, there's one more thing I want to do today, and that's with the cooling system. This is the coolant expansion tank that used to sit on the passenger side fender. It's pretty big, it's pretty bulky, it doesn't look that great, and it holds a lot of coolant. But the space that it used to go in is occupied by something a little bit cooler and more important in my opinion. But I still need a way to get coolant into the truck. Now, one thing I had to modify, I'll show you real quick, is the heater core line that sits on the outside. Normally that went into the hose that also went to the coolant expansion tank, but instead all I did is just put one of those reducing barbs in there. This goes from 1 inch to 3/4, and this is a 5/8 heater line, but I was able to get it to stretch over. So that's where the heater core is going to return into, which works just fine, but I still need a way to get coolant into the truck, or into the engine rather. So I picked up one of these universal inline radiator filler neck adapter pieces. Now I am going to splice it into the upper hose, and you could just cut the hose and stick it in there with a couple hose clamps and be on your way. But I'm a sucker for punishment, and I'm going to weld this actually directly to the aluminum thermostat housing. I'll trim it up a little bit shorter to kind of get it nice and close, and then all I got to do is grab a hose to go from here to here, and we're in business. One thing to keep in mind if you're going to tackle a project like this is you need to keep the cap at the highest point possible in the system. That way when you go to add the coolant, all the air bubbles will be able to work their way out. There is one last thing I got to add to make this complete, and that's some sort of a coolant or a fluid reservoir. I picked this one up online. It's pretty inexpensive, and it's a non-pressurized reservoir. It's just got a little vent at the top, so as the cooling system expands and contracts, well, it'll just use like a siphon effect, and this will kind of fill up a little bit and then get sucked back into the cooling system as the engine warms up and cools down. I think I'm going to mount it kind of back here in this corner right beside the master cylinder, make a simple bracket to go off of those 2 bolts right there. It'll be pretty strong, but that's a project for another time. I want to say thank you guys for watching. I do appreciate each and every one of you. And if you like what you've seen today, help me out and hit that subscribe button, because we need to get to 30,000 subs by the end of 2020. I got parts coming in the mail every single day, and we are so close to getting UglyTruck back on the road with a turbocharged big block. So you're not going to want to miss it. My name's LT. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.